This is a story called The Little Monsters, chapter 128. Kika gets 2 baby sisters and 2 baby brothers. All the gang are at Creeper's house, testing all her new music equipment in her new music room, when her mum comes up and tells Kika that her mum's on the phone. Kika goes downstairs to speak to her mum, and her mum tells her to go home because she has some bad news and she can't tell her over the phone. Kika runs down home as fast as she can, and when she gets there she runs in the house and shouts, "Mum, Mum, what's happened?" Her mum gets everyone in the room and sat down, and she says to them, "Do you remember your cousin Marie and her partner James? Yeah, they're the ones who are on drugs, and the ones who have the quads," answered Kika. "That's right, Kika. Well, you know social services have tried to help them time and time again, and every time they've been told to come off the drugs or the quads would be taken into care because they weren't looking after them. Well, last night around midnight, the quads were seen walking the streets alone. Social services have now taken them into care and their parents were arrested. Now social services want to know if we'll take them in permanently, and we want to know what you guys think," said Kika's mum. "They deserve to have a safe and loving home, Mum, so I say let them come and live here with us," said Kika. Everyone agreed, and then Kika's mum phoned social services. Then she got 2 rooms ready, one for the girls, Elsie and Erin, and one for the boys, Kane and Freddie, for when they arrived. Later that night the quads arrived and they were terrified. Excuse me. And they just stood there, clinging to each other. Kika's mum gave them some supper, bathed them, read them a bedtime story and then put them to bed. Kika's mum knew that they were turning 4 years old in 2 days, so the next day she dropped them all off at nursery and then she went shopping and bought each of them loads of presents. When they got up on the day of their birthday, Kane said, "Who are all the presents for, Auntie Jane?" "Well, some are for you and Freddie and the rest are for Elsie and Erin." "Happy birthday, guys," said Kika's mum Jane. "We're not allowed presents because Mummy and Daddy say that we're naughty, and naughty boys and girls don't get presents, they just get hit," said Freddie. You won't get hit by us, sweetheart. I promise you that will never ever happen. Now come and open your presents," said Jane. The quads opened their presents and they were really happy with what they got. It didn't take them long to settle in, but they were still scared of being hit. It was decided that until they were a bit older and were no longer scared of being hit, the boys would share a room and the girls would share a room. One day little Elsie said to Jane, "Auntie Jane, is our Mummy and Daddy going to take us back home because I don't want to live with them? I want to stay here with you and Uncle Charles." "No, my darling, you're never ever going back to your Mummy and Daddy. You're going to live here with us forever," said Jane. "Auntie Jane, will you and Uncle Charles be our new Mummy and Daddy, please?" asked Erin. "Yes, of course we will, sweetheart. I tell you what, how about I get Kika and the gang to teach you all how to play pranks on people without getting caught," said Jane. "Yes, please, Mummy," said Elsie. The next day, Kika and the gang started teaching the quads how to play pranks on people without getting caught, and they had a ball. A few days later, social services came back to see the quads and to see how they were settling in. They were very happy with their progress and they told Jane and Charles that they'd be back. Hang on guys, I've got a page missing. That they'd be back every week for the first month to check on the quad's progress. However, the day after their visit, around midnight, everyone was woken up by a loud banging on the front door. When Jane looked out the window, she saw Marie and James stood on their doorstep. She told Charles and he went down and told them to go away, but they refused. James managed to barge past him, saying, "We're not going anywhere without our kids. We know they're here and we're not leaving without them." By this time the quads had woken up and they were all crying. The older kids were holding them, trying to calm them down, and Jane called the police. The police arrived and arrested Marie and James. That night the quads were too scared to sleep in their own beds, so they slept with the older kids. The next day everyone stayed at home instead of going to nursery, school, college and work. Thankfully, Marie and James never came back and the quads settled down again. A few months later they started full-time school and they came on in leaps and bounds. Sometimes Kicker and the gang would let them hang out with them, and every time they had a ball playing pranks on people. Jane and Charles applied to adopt them and social services couldn't see any reason why the adoption shouldn't be allowed. One night when everyone was downstairs and the quads were meant to be in bed, they sneaked into the other rooms and put stuff in people's beds. When anyone got in there, they lied on what was there. The next day Jane said to the quads, "Did you lot put stuff in our beds last night?" "No, Mummy, we didn't," said Erin, trying not to laugh. A few days later, when the quads were at school, their teacher saw their parents outside the school. Thankfully, the quads didn't see them and the school phoned Jane and Charles to let them know what had happened. After that, the quads' parents were never seen again. After the quads had been living with Jane and Charles for a year, their adoption was finalised. The quads became pranksters, thanks to Kicker and the gang, and they'd have everyone in stitches on a daily basis. By the time they were 6, they were all sleeping in separate bedrooms, and they'd all settled down. They were all doing exceptionally well in school. It turned out that they were all very clever, especially Erin, who was way ahead of the other kids in her class, and Charles and Jane couldn't have been more prouder of her if they tried. End of chapter 128. Hope you like it, guys. Take care. Love you. See you in the next chapter. Love yous. Bye.